All right. Hi, everyone. We're going to be starting in just a few minutes here, hoping to get some trickle in last minute people to show up for the live webinar. We're doing another promo again, as well as a brief presentation before we dive straight into the ZBrush component. So let's give it a few more minutes and then we're going to hop right in. left before. So I'm going to go back to ZBrush. So just again, to recap what we had done last week. I just make sure that's off. I recorded it right, so we can go through. Last week we did some scan cleaning from uncorrected, unaligned scan. We modified the topology and we got ourselves some trim lines in ZBrush. Those trim lines in turn were turned into quad meshes, and those quad meshes were the secret sauce for getting a scan and preparing it for CAD applications inside of Fusion 360. From there, we were able to go and bring in different templates and different consumable files and map them very quickly to that scan that we prepared. And with a few simple clicks, those quad meshes can turn into working surfaces with high accuracy, good organic geometry, and just a matter of taking the time and adding the features you need between each of these features that you brought in. So the result of this was within about an hour, we had a fully designed 3D CAD parasolid parametric AFO design that was unique to a specific patient, allowing us to rinse and repeat that process, and also go online and check out hubs.com or Fast Radius or Xometry or Tempest 3D, all these different online vendors who can take those files, those CAD files, and right away start to give you quotes for those pieces. So let me know in the comments, guys, if you guys have any questions as we go. I'm going to try and keep on top of that as we go this time. But hopping back into ZBrush, what's really interesting about ZBrush is that we can take this CAD model, a completed CAD model. It doesn't have to be the last step. It can be something we take back into ZBrush and use ZBrush to leverage some extra features, namely modeling with lattices and modeling with color. This is one of the main reasons why I recommend getting into ZBrush if you haven't gotten into mesh modeling yet, because of the added benefit it has when working from CAD back to mesh. You don't get those with Mesh Mixer, for example, even though it's free. So by deciding to learn ZBrush in the beginning, you get access to this extra supplementary sort of tool sets and workflows that can really bring extra value to your devices. So let's just sort of explore that today right now. So I'm going to hop in and we're going to start designing. So this is the CAD export from our last lesson. Perhaps a lot of you recognize it. And I just see the open. Oh no. I'm getting some comments that perhaps oh no, it looks like there's people in the chat. It looks like there's people watching right now. Let me know in the comments, guys, if you guys can see me and hear me. I'm just having trouble. Some people are having trouble joining us. So let me know in the comments, guys, if you can hear me, if you can see me, say hi. I want to be able to engage with you guys as I work. So let me know what your thoughts are. So I'm going to start off by looking at the mesh of this shape. So you can see this is a CAD export. CAD exports have a very different way of meshing themselves. It's very grid-like, and you can sort of tell where a mesh has come from, especially when it comes from CAD. It looks very different from a scan. So we can sort of see that in the quality here. So first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to create groups, and groups from the normals of this shape. So if I turn on solo right now, you can see that we can easily isolate different groups. Luke asks, have you been used Ethermix 3D Scanner for the iPhone? I haven't used that before. Most iPhone technologies are all the same. So in the sense of their quality, all of it gets throttled down to the iPhone's actual camera. There's no one software that will work better than the other. So I have used iPhone scanners. They all yield very similar results. Richard says, looking good. I'm glad you guys are all here. Thanks for joining me. Hey, Ryan. Nice to see you again. I actually can see these comments this time, which is great. So let's continue on. I'm going to try and keep on top of it all. So yeah, so we've made some groups, right? Some color groups, and this is really useful for us to help isolate what we want to work on and what we want to protect, essentially, because ZBrush is like a mud modeler, and it's very easy to sort of destroy something very quickly if you're not careful. So by putting up groups, we can isolate what we want to work on. So let's start off by talking about texturing, because that's one of the best things about ZBrush. So I am going to start off this lesson with a texture example. So we're going to split this into its parts so I can just work on the yoke of the AFO. And now we're going to remesh this because right now we're at 56,000 points. We're going to remesh this to something substantially higher so that we have, a good resolution for the image. 836,000 points instantaneously. I like it. There's all those points. We're looking good. So let's try and add a texture to the back of this. How would we do that? Well, I can Control-Shift, select the part I want to work on first off. And, we can hide everything else except that grouped surface, which is great. And we can now look at making a group inside this group for, the window of our texture. So I can go into my labels and textures inside the OPDD Digital Designer custom menu set, which comes with our courses. You guys can mask by different features. So mask by border, for example, is a good one where I can grow this mask and sharpen it, and then grow this mask and sharpen it. This is the weird part. I wish there was a tool that could just grow this for you, but in that event, I'm going to do this. So what I did is I masked away that border, and then I'm growing that mask slowly. It's going slowly because my mesh is so dense. It only travels so many points away from its original position before it sort of caps out. So by doing something like this and just slowly growing it, we can very quickly create a window, a masked window. And I can go look at it from here too, and I can use my brush to maybe add that stop as well, just so that's not in there as well. So something like that, hey? And so once we make that group, let's make a new group from this. So group masked again. Right, so turn off our lines, turn on our fill. So there's a new group we've made for ourselves, right? So that's a great group to apply a texture to and also maintain the strength of our trim lines. So Control-Shift, let's go back to the original. We now have that new group. Let's go and load ourselves a texture. So I have a bunch of examples here. There is more than a few we can try. Let's try this first one, which is a neural texture. I have to map it a certain way for this command to work. So we're going down into our lattice workflows category now. And we're going to UVC, which is wrap this cylindrically with like UVs. And then we're going to mask that by alpha. And right there, we can wrap a texture all the way across this model. Now, I don't want to do anything with this like this, because if I start exploding this, we're going to get some nasty results on the inside and outside, in which we don't want, right? Look how crazy that is, eh? Just like how instantaneous ZBrush can make destroyed geometry and not crash. Like, there's no other program that can do this, guys. There really isn't. So we can Control-Z, remove that. We're going to select the group we want to work on, select it again to remove it, and let's just remove all of this altogether. We're just going to completely mask that out, return to that group we want, and there we have it. We only have a mask now applied in this area. So if we decide to do an inflation here, just a very small inflation, we can clear the mask, we can clear this, take a look at that, and boom, there we have a texture. Nice and easy, and all done from a 2D image. So pretty exciting, guys. Let's go back a few steps. Let's try that again. So we're going to maybe try another one. Let's bring in another alpha. So we have the hex fade. Hex fade's a pretty cool one, or even the organic latticing too. So let's maybe try the organic. So if we UV cylindrical mask by alpha, we get this organic shape, which is really interesting all over the part. We can Control-Shift isolate the group, inverse, and whoops, let us remove all of that, return. There's our new group, and all we have to do now is just do that small inflation inward, clear it, and there you have it. We have a new texture. So really exciting stuff. It's really easy to go and find something online to create some sort of lattice design for yourself. But, that's just debossing and embossing. What if you actually wanted to make, you actually wanted to punch through this design? So, for example, if I go and upload or load a new one, so do we have, I guess we don't have that one. I guess this one can work too. Let's see. So let's mask by alpha. So there's a new texture. This one I want to use and actually punch right through the device. Sorry, I'm going to butcher this name, but Shuj Alanazi is all types of printers can work with ZBrush? Yes, any printer can work with ZBrush. ZBrush works with any mesh output software or device, so you can put it into workflows for printing. You can do it for video games. It really is up to you. I'm going to now, there we go, invert that. So for example, what if I wanted to make a punch through with this texture instead of just a deboss? How would I do that? It's not the best example in the sense that we're going to get some pretty thin areas here. Maybe I can grow the mask before we do it. And grow that, sharpen it, grow that, sharpen it. There we go. That's a little better. So say I want to punch this through. What do I do? So I'm going to group masked again. And this time I'm actually going to duplicate our part. So I have a duplicate. And I'm going to turn off solo, so we have both. I'm going to Control-Shift select that group I wanted to keep and delete the hidden. So I just have this surface in a duplicate part. This is really interesting because now, as a duplicate, we can go and panel loop this, this piece. What that does is it gives those surfaces thickness. And those thicknesses can be used to cut into another solid, but they have to be separate, right? So that's why we made a sort of separate group. So I'm going to quickly create sort of just the scale of these pieces so that they sort of come into the part just like this. And then using a weird way of booleening parts together, visible and structured in subtools we can hit, making sure all these are off, we can hit live boolean. And just like that, we can get from a 2D texture a cut through. Nice. So really exciting stuff. Again, you can match and map this all on a 2D image, and you can find these images online. And so it's that easy to go and make these devices and then, create prints from them. So that's a really cool feature for ZBrush. I'm going to just sort of clear that for now. Go back to what we had before. So this one, let's just back up a bit. So we have that grouping. So now that we've sort of looked at those textures and being able to punch through things, can I do that one more time live? We're going to, there. Let's create a Boolean mesh from this so we can have a copy of this. So we can insert this back into our part. There we go. There's the final version. We can turn off live Boolean and remove everything else. Here is our new mesh that was made from that. So, we can polish this, clean up those edges a bit, give it some, especially now that we are in a mesh modeler, we can actually smooth out a lot of these corners that in CAD would have been very difficult to do. But you start to look a little muddy if you're not careful. So we got to be careful with that. If we look at our fill, again, we're keeping our groups. We still have lots of good geometry for coloring. So let's talk about coloring now, because you can make color files for this. So all we got to do is hit Colorize and change our brush style from adding and subtracting geometry to doing RGB and like material RGB values. So if I now change this to red and drag, you can see that we've actually started creating color for this. So I can go and find my Coca-Cola red and quickly spray paint this whole thing red. So this is what the color is going to be for this part too. Some cool things that we can do as well, with coloring just base like this is, we can use masking, which is really to help us. So if I mask by borders again, or sorry, if I mask by crease, whoops, mask by crease, and grow that mask. No, mask by crease, mask by, oh, we lose our groups. We didn't lose our groups. Okay, so mask by groups. There we go. And if we invert that, what if we make this next color, a lighter red or like even a white, so we can sort of follow the contours of our device and sort of change the colors of those parts there. Or we can go and change, find a group. Come on, give me the group. Oh, there's no more groups. Okay, you can use groups, rest assured, so you can isolate groups, make groups, and then paint by groups. You can also paint with alphas, which is very interesting. So say you want to create a stamp from your company logo. You can find a stamp of some shape. You can bring it in as an image file and drag a rectangle sort of that shape, and you can bring it in. Let's go back to this example where we're colorizing in this and dragging a dot maybe of something like this in color green. So again, you can stamp different things to your device and you can color it just like this. Easiest and most effective way, however, to do color is not to use these tools like this. You're actually way better off. There we go. Something like that. Turn on our fill again, turn on our colorize. We can texture and wrap just like we were with those maps for alphas and for latticing. So what if I took something like this where I've again mapped it, I'm going to apply it, and then I'm going to UVC my part again, and I'm going to poly paint this time. So just like that, it's really easy to take a color file or an image and wrap it around a part. So you can have a predetermined library of stuff that works for you, and you can just wrap it and apply it. And what's even more interesting is that you can load the same image into your alpha channel as well. And if you decide to mask by alpha this time, and we turn off colorize, you can see that we have a mask in the same area as our color, which means we can take that and we can inflate geometry based on the color itself. So the color not only is on the part, but it's also embossed with color. So that's something really interesting. Again, I wouldn't have done it on the inside. We could have controlled that, but for the sake of demonstration, this color is sort of it gives you a good idea of what's possible. So another one, if we wanted to bring in a new texture, let's bring in, import. Here's another one which actually has a logo on it. So if we bring in a logo, mask by or poly paint from texture, you can get that wrap and a logo on the inside of your part or the outside. So with one button, guys, we can do this kind of stuff in Zbrush. And I've set up the menu set to be able to easily facilitate this. There's going to be tutorials on this in the near future if there's enough interest. It just seems to be an optional thing that people think is cool, but no one's actually taken up the time to learn. So be interesting to hear your guys' thoughts, whether or not you want to see this kind of stuff in the coursework that we're offering. So color-wise, one button coloring, that's the coolest part about this, and you get full control with brushes and alphas, and there's really a lot of complexity here that we can play with. One final thing that's pretty interesting is that, if we go to the, if I turn, go. If I go to the liner here, a lot of liners, they want some sort of latticing to happen so that you can make it more flexible. So what happens if we just work on this for a second and repeat all those steps to sort of create a hexagonal lattice around this part? So we're going to group by normals. We're going to then remesh at a high resolution. Actually, no, we're not. Group like this. Then we're going to duplicate this part. We're going to work on just the outside surface of this part and delete the rest. We're going to mask by border. We're going to grow that mask a few times. And we're going to create a group around the rim so we can protect the rim when we do our quad meshing. So we're going to group masks. We now have a group around the edge. And now let's do that quad meshing command with keeping groups on. We're going to quad mesh this real quick. And the reason why I'm doing this is because we can take a quad mesh and we can unwrap it and make it flat and then apply a texture. So we get seamless texturing across this shape, because it would be really hard to project or paint a hexagonal texture across this. For example, this shape is like really complex. So if I decide to try and do that, how would I do that? There's another way of doing texturing inside of ZBrush where we actually flatten it first and then we apply our textures. So if I can unwrap this and then hit the Morph UV button, you can see what it does. It unwraps that part flat for us, which is really exciting because now if we go back here, you can leave it as a 3D image, but it only has 4,000 points. So we actually need a lot more geometry in order for this to work. So I'm going to copy these UVs. I'm going to divide this a few times. So now we have 298,000. And if I paste these UVs and then delete lower and then paste UVs and then morph this, same thing, we're getting that morph happening where it's all flat. And now we can go, let's load up a alpha for this of just a regular hexagon pattern. So with this regular hexagon pattern, we can now apply a hexagon pattern to this surface. We can then group the masks. So now we take this, remove our fill. No, there we go. You can see those groups. And so now, hopefully, if we unmorph this, there it is. We now have that wrap happening across the whole surface. And this is really exciting because now we can isolate this group and create that cutting tool again, just like before. So let's Control Shift select this group, and we're going to delete hidden. And now we're going to just maybe polish this once just because that's really pretty jagged. And let's create those panel loops again. So there is our cutting tool. Look how easy that was. So turn off solo mode. Let's turn off anything else that's not pertaining to this cut we're about to do, except the thing we want to cut. So we're going to go back up to this one. We're at 89,000 points here. Probably going to have to increase that a bit. Create Dynamesh, 810,000. That's great. Turn that on, turn that on, turn this on. And if I'm not mistaken, it's starting to show. It's not quite intersecting yet. So let's take this part here and go to the center of the part. And let's try bringing that in just a little bit this way and just a little bit this way. And maybe just a little bit up, just a little bit. There it is. There you have it. So it was pretty easy to do. And, you know, we'll have to do a bit more finessing to get this to sort of work properly. But it's actually updating a Boolean in live, real time, to make this. So if I turn this Boolean off, you can see that this outer group here is not in the right spot. So let's bring that out a bit. Go. So now everything's clipping. And this one here, let's just maybe give that a bit more space there. So a bit finessing here and there. But overall, very easy to make and map these kinds of textures across a very complex surface. So now this would be something that would have a lot of flexibility in it. So when we work in ZBrush, it's a different kind of beast a bit. But again, these tools are just really nice tools to have on the back end of working in CAD, because you can take your CAD designs to a whole other level. So the final one I'm going to show you guys here, and then we're going to cut to questions or so, is a really interesting one. So let's turn off Live Boolean. Let's go back to our AFO yoke, and let's talk about Thingiverse. I'm sure a lot of you have been to or heard about Thingiverse. Thingiverse has a lot of cool things on it. So what I'm going to do is go to Thingiverse, and in Thingiverse, there's things that people like kids. You know, you can go and find a Star Wars, a Star Wars figurine on on Thingiverse. Wouldn't it be great if you could take assets like this and put them on a device? Well, I'm here to show you that you can, and just show you how easy this is. So I'm going to actually bring in, a Star Wars clone trooper from, like a 3D printing store. So there it is. We have a Star Wars clone trooper in the field right now. So transparent, I'm going to put him where I want him, I want him to show up on the back of this cover, let's say. And so some kid really likes Star Wars. I have to do a bit of setup here, but imagine it would be that easy to, have him just sort of projected onto our projected onto our cover. If I put him like this, and I double my screen size, because funny enough, ZBrush uses a 2D scroll, no, a 2D canvas to project a lot of these commands, which is why it's so quick to render millions of polygons. You got to like run your canvas at a higher resolution sometimes to make it work. So now that we've set it up, we want this image to be on that that device. If we go to color artistry, look what happens when we hit project base relief. Oh wait, you know what? I need to be in another device tool. Sorry, one more setup piece. This will be part of the training someday if I'm in this one and I hit project base relief. Okay, one more time. I think it was because it was see-through. There it is. Hit solo. Take a look at that. That's on. You can go and take that same model, move them around again. Same thing, project base relief. If we go back to this, we can project the same model again. So you can get a collection of toys, line them up in a cool little headshot or some sort of title, and you can throw those down onto the image. Now, we have to make sure we're following, let's mask away everything except what we want to have a relief on. We can change the relief height. So crisp edges, relax, so relief repeat count. Let's try 500. Contrast, relief. Let's see. So solo, turn that, get him back to where we want him. It's all based on your viewport. So if we do that and change this to 500, I think we can try that again. Oh, again, got to be in the right subtool here. Ahmed is asking, which ZBrush plan would you recommend? Just the, I didn't realize, are there plans? I have the base version of ZBrush. I don't think I have anything special. Do we get groups out of this? We don't get groups out of this. Anyway, I'm going to refine this technique a bit more so that we get better results, but there you have it. It is possible to take any shape that you find online, and this can be some really high detail sculpt, and then you can project that as a relief onto any surface you want, and then go in and paint it. My goodness, my computer is trying to take off like an airplane right now. I think I'm overdoing it a bit, streaming and doing these crazy commands all at once. So there you guys have it. These are some of the cool things you can do with ZBrush. It does export and work with every type of printer, especially with its color modes. So that's sort of a big bonus. But that's more or less what I had to show today for this. So again, going from ZBrush to correct your topology, take a scan, correct it, align it, start drawing your trim lines in ZBrush, get your quad meshes in order, bring those quad meshes and that scan back into Fusion, and then you can build out a device. So that device, once it's made and you have all of your wall thicknesses and everything else made, you can bring that back into ZBrush, and you can do some pretty cool things like all this latticing that we've done and sort of been talking about. So having said that, that's sort of all I've got for some of the benefits of using ZBrush. Are there any questions about what you can do with ZBrush or what ZBrush is good for or anything else like that? Lewis asks, when you used a black and white picture to do the wrap, can you import without scaling so that you control the dimensions of the pattern? Ooh, potentially. So you can kind of do that. Fundamentally, no, you cannot scale and control things like wall thickness. you just have to sort of do trial by error to figure that out. So if we go back in time a bit to sort of get that group in order again, if I wanted to bring in sort of, let's see, if I go back to, I'll bring in another one. I'll give you an example here. No, no, it will be, hold on a second. Hold on a second. Where are you? Yeah, come on. Oh, there's so many files when you do this kind of stuff. It's just everywhere. File used. Damn. Anyway, let me just say that you can change them by changing the proportions of the design on the 2D image. So like if your logo is coming in too wide, if you shrink it on the 2D image and try it again, you can scale it that way. If your hex grid isn't hexagonal, it's more stretched, you can change the proportions of the 2D image, save out a new version, and then try rewrapping it again. And so you're sort of creating variants where the proportions based on the canvas size is going to be different. So if I take a square canvas or if I take a long rectangular canvas, it doesn't matter. It's going to map across the same surface each time, and it's just going to wrap it corner to corner, regardless of the size it is. It's all about like sort of the proportions of the ratios of it. Where are my alphas? Where is a good example of this? Okay, so yeah, okay. So here we go, finally. Sorry about that. So if I UVC mask by alpha, so this image you can see is like really big and unmapped. So you get this weird seam, and all of those are coming in really large. And so, if we inflate that, we get a different result. I go and so that first one was like, oh, that didn't work at all. So I'm going to go to the next one, which was knurl 2 and knurl 3 and knurl 4. So knurl 3 changed that proportion a lot. It just, we bunched it in a bunch. So if you can see that, it's a much bigger grid. So if we mask this one by alpha, it's like, oh, okay, that's really nice. It's much better. So I had to change the proportions by mapping it differently. And there's even more, I think, especially when you do hexagons or something like this, they smear depending on, you got to be careful. Let's try knurl 4. Knurl 4, we mask that. So there we go. So you can see that, right? It's like totally different a bit. One's a bit shorter, stockier, and one's a bit longer, just because I changed the ratio across the canvas. So that's how I'm controlling those. Shuj is asking about the trim line and how can we make the trim line. That was in our last webinar. Shuj, if you're interested, I would go watch the first episode. We actually go over that start to finish on how to do trim lines, because we start with actually a scan, a 3D scan, and then you use these exact same tools to drag out a trim line, and you draw it out using these tools. So I definitely recommend checking that out. I didn't realize that there was plans for Zbrush, so I'm just going to look into that a bit here. But guys, I think we're sort of almost getting to the end of the webinar here, so I'm just going to maybe do something like that, and maybe put my head back up on screen. There we go. So just as a reminder, we're doing a promotion again today, so if you guys want to get in on learning ZBrush and some of these tools, we do have a foundations course on using it in ONP settings, and we're always updating topics and device types, and color theory is going to be a big part of that in the near future. So by getting started now with your theory and the foundations, the color lessons are going to come, and you're going to be prepared and ready to take them right away. So if I'm looking up ZBrush price plan, it's no longer owned by Pixel Logic. Maxon bought it, and so I'm not sure about the plans and pricing. So Maxon, oh yeah. So Maxon has a bunch of different pricings. They have like everything under their umbrella you can buy for 140 Canadian, or you can buy each program separately. So Redshift, Red Giant, Cinema 4D, Universe, Forger. I don't know any of those, unfortunately. But ZBrush is $38.25 a month Canadian, which means it's maybe about $30 US a month for Americans. So again, like really affordable. I would recommend just getting that plan. You can go monthly for a bit of a higher rate, but that's your yearly price. So definitely recommend. That's all you need. I don't believe there's tiers of ZBrush. There is just only ZBrush. All right. So if that's it, guys, thanks for tuning in. We're going to try and do these every couple of weeks here on different topics. We're going to be hosting new ideas as well as maybe some questionnaires or quizzes online about what to do next as a topic. So, feel free to engage and let us know in the comments what you guys want to see next in digital design workflows. So I think that's all from me, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm signing off, and I'll talk to you guys next time.